it's really difficult to explain just how bad this comic book is unless I show it to you guys. And I showed a little bit yesterday, but today I got reading a little bit more, and I'm like, wow, I'm upset I didn't include that into the previous video. So here we go again. The second fucking is upon us. This is Marvel Comics' new Green Team, and the only way I can describe it is that it's about a group of eco-terrorists that you're supposed to sympathize with. They're kind of like anti-heroes, but my god, I mean, let's see. Let's see what they're doing. So, I'm pretty sure you guys know about this. We already talked about it in a video. Chick talks to a turtle and then finds a plastic bag that the turtle choked on it, so she decides to stab a cashier. So she's not going after politicians, people in power. No, no, no. It's the working class lad that's the enemy. In other words, the enemy is you. Or if you're a teenager reading this comic, it's your father. He's the problem with the world. Again, I showed in the previous video that China is leading the world on polluting by dumping plastic into the ocean by far. And it's kind of funny because this chick is Chinese. Well, I mean, she's with American citizen, but ethnically Chinese. And she's not talking or picking on China. No, it's the US that's the problem. Alright, so we already discussed about this, but look at this. She's sick of running from the climate emergency. Somewhere in the Dakotas, God's country, it's also Sinodin Oil Company country. They bought it. Nature Girl can feel the truth in the air, the cold of 2 degrees Celsius. So yet again, the most villainous person in the world is the white working class man, as we saw with the cashier. Now is the guy that's just laying the pipes. He's just doing his job. He's not the multi-billionaire behind the oil company. They're not even pointing out to the fact that the overwhelming amount of oil companies in the world come from the Middle East. No, no, no. Like, they racialize this. And they... Now, the reason this is funny is because I remember a comics gator who was trying to push a comic to Kickstarter. And one of the panels showed a couple of gangsters that were trying to harass a woman. And the superhero saves the day. Now, the people in charge at Kickstarter, they said, because the villains look Latino, this is a harmful stereotype, so they shut down the comic. But when you see this being time and time again, I mean, it's so freaking obvious at this point that this is what they're doing. And you get to see some of the writers giving interviews, and they specifically say they're doing this. And I told you in the previous video, with the Powerpuff Girls live-action TV show, they said that any member of the cast can be any race, they don't care, but they want the villain, they want Mojo Jojo to be a straight white man. Well, not Mojo Jojo, the son of Mojo Jojo. And he was supposed to be a straight white man. So the villains overwhelmingly are working class dudes. It's not even Jeff Bezos, right? Like, it's not even a politician or a billionaire. No, it's like the working class dude. It's someone with no power. Well, what power does this guy have? What power did that cashier have, realistically speaking? Absolutely nothing. And they're getting attacked, and they're getting beaten, and of course, they casually drop, oh, this is late stage capitalism. And when you look at who's polluting the most is China. China is not late stage capitalism. But the thing that really bothers me the most is that when you look at the meta-narrative, this is a corporation. Marvel is a company. It's a capitalistic corporation. And they're putting out the product that they're expecting you to buy. And they're like, oh, capitalism's so bad. Well, they're doing capitalism. They're not giving this shit out for free. In fact, I remember there was this huge controversy last year with a lot of Marvel artists. So like, oh, people are pirating our comic books, and oh, it's the piracy that's hurting us. Like, when you pirate the comic book, you're not supporting it, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, that's communism, motherfucker. Like, you know, it's the people's right to read the comic, I guess. And by the way, just by the way, I looked at the numbers. I was shocked that people are even pirating it, but the numbers were very low. I mean, it was actually negligible. Which leads to assume that I guess maybe when they look at those numbers, they think maybe it's double the times of what they do in sales. So that's why they were upset. It's like, yes, 1,000 people are pirating our comic book, but we're only selling 500 copies. So maybe they were like, oh, if we could get that 1,000 to actually buy our shit. But if this was a socialist state, if this was in China, they would never allow this to be published. I mean, under communism in Romania, where you didn't have the benefits of late-stage capitalism to allow you to publish this shit, you wouldn't be able to make it. Like, any propaganda against the government, or in this case, it's propaganda against the energy sector of your nation. And when the energy sector goes down, how are you going to wage a war with solar power tanks? Like, is that something that's going to happen? How are you, and not to mention, like, now in America, it's funny because everyone's cost of living is going up. The quality of life for everyone, including minorities and white people, is going down. And it's part to do with the high crime rates that keep rising and the energy bills, because everything is getting more expensive. So you have Elizabeth Warren going, oh, those evil oil companies, they're not giving us enough oil, so their prices are going up. It's like, well, yeah, but like, don't you want oil to go away? Isn't this what you want? So on one hand, we want less oil, but the oil companies is evil because they're not giving us more oil. And on the other hand, crime is bad, so let's glorify criminals. Let's really glorify this shit. And I know, like, if these people were, breaking into the Capitol building to demand accountability from the politician, they would be terrorists. But if they're just attacking some random pleb who's fixing a pipe, that is progressive. Now, that is very, very progressive. And this is the reason why everyone is buying manga. Manga isn't doing this, just so you know. Like, there are manga that go political, but I don't see manga shitting on Japan the way Western comics are shitting on the United States. And it's not just that, it's also that they're shitting on the system that allows them to put food on the table. I mean, you can have a nation without Marvel. They're not an essential business. They don't have to exist. In fact, if you're complaining about pollution, you need to shut down as a comic book company. Like, in a world where pollution happens, your comic book industry shouldn't exist. It can go away. The planet is dying. There are people in trucks taking paper to your company and then taking that paper from taking that paper in the form of comic books to the store. You're polluting. You're polluting just by existing, Marvel. If you really care about the environment, you should shut down. There is absolutely no reason why any person that believes that the pollution in the earth needs to drop should buy a Marvel comic, because you're encouraging to the system of polluting Mother Gaia. Kind of reminds me when IGN was talking about the climate emergency. And you're like a video gaming website. I mean, nothing pollutes more in a household than the gaming PC. Probably consumes more electricity than anything else. And the electricity, surprise, surprise, in most places comes from a coal power plant. Or they're burning fossil fuels in order to do it. It doesn't come from the walls. I know this is the misconception. But yeah, so all these companies that are polluting, they're like telling you to stop polluting, and it's the working class dude that's the enemy. So hopefully their target audience are going to buy their comic books, which I assume are millionaires, billionaires, politicians, and Hollywood actors. So maybe they should buy comic books, but if you're a working class dude, you should not touch this comic book at all. Because they literally want to harm you. That they expressively say this in this battle, they expressively say that you're the problem. And this is their solution for the problem. So do not buy these comic books, and by all means make sure that your kids do not have these comic books, because then they might get ideas. To do this, again, just to understand, fighting late stage capitalism. It's harmful. If I do this shit on YouTube, I would get a violation for TOS if I were to encourage people to do that. What the fuck is wrong with people working at Marvel? Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.